and just think like they're perfect. And they drift away from people. And they continue to drift away from people until they're unable to relate to the downtrodden and to people that are vulnerable and to people in need and people that just suffer like basic challenges every day. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, أَيُّ نَاسْ أَشَّدُ ابْتِلَاءً, like who are the people who were tested the most? قَالَ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ ثُمُّ الصَّالِحُونَ. He said prophets and the righteous. We believe, as is mentioned in numerous places in the Quran, that life is a test. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. But what is the test? The test is to see under what circumstances, in what difficulties can I أعبر الله كأنني أراه فإن لم أكن أراه فإنه يراني. The test is to see my commitment to worshiping Allah as though I see Him. So that's why I said before, everyone has to experience the family disruption perhaps of Adam. Perhaps someone will go through the experience, let me phrase it again. Some of us may experience the trauma with family like the trauma of Adam, but he maintains that maqam of ihsan. Some of us may go through the test of being ridiculed of Prophet Noah, as he was building a boat and no one believed him. Maybe today in the academy, to say you're a believer in the academy is to be very similar to like Noah telling people, I'm building this boat because it's about to get lit. And they were like, yastahzi'un, like they ridiculed him. Maybe to be a believer in certain professional settings is equated to being like a form of like needing psychotherapy. That's something that people will go through. Maybe the challenges of the heat of life, so I have to go through the fire of Ibrahim. The isolation and loneliness of maybe being a divorcee in the community, or being, in your 30s and still single, or 40s or 50s. The loneliness of Sayyidina Yusuf. Maybe I'm away from my family in New York City or wherever, so it compounds my sense of loneliness. I asked converts once, man, what's the greatest difficulty you face in conversion? And they said loneliness, because you commit like social suicide, man, to a certain degree. You go from the bar to the minbar. It's a big change. Second, the next is like understanding the great wisdom of Dawood and Sulaiman. Being the victim of patriarchy like Sayyidah Maryam. Like every single prophet goes through something that we experience, the bondage of the people of Moses. Speaking truth to power. Sayyidina Isa being cast out by his people. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam having to migrate from a place which he said, you are habbal ard ilay, like you're the most beloved place to me. So the prophets now become an opportunity to generate a wisdom into trauma and challenges. So Imam Ibn Nahwi, he wants to talk about how do we see that test of ihsan. When the focus is clear, when the focus of life is to worship Allah, then the test and success becomes like salt on the food. But when the focus of life is the test, that's where things get twisted. And it's not easy, like I'm not saying I did it, There's no way I'm telling you I've been through that and been able to like say, yeah, I'm Mr. Super Holy Guy. I can do this. May Allah make it easy for us. And that's why one of the great dua at the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, because we believe that supplications at the end of the second chapter are accepted. And what's one of the things that's stated at the end of the chapter? لا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. Like don't burden us in a way which we can't handle. wa'fu anna. So forgive us, pardon us, like we've made these mistakes. So pardon us in our failure to uphold ihsan. Waghfir lana. And forgive us for the sins which we admit we've committed and the shortcomings we've fallen into. Warhamna. And then grant us paradise. So that's where we understand now the purpose of the text is to help us understand one of the greatest mysteries of being a muhsin is, why does Allah test me? Why is there pain? Why is there suffering? So Imam Ibn Nahwi takes us on that ride, and he does through poetry. We said that, poetry was something that scholars recognized as a means of achieving public literacy in an easy way. And again, Ibn Nahwi, even though he's a great scholar, he doesn't drift so far away in the name of being a scholar that he forgets how to spit bars. He still understands how to engage in what's called the public intellectual. The public intellectual. So we'll just review some of the lines that we went through, and then inshallah today we're going to go through a few of the lines, and then we're going to talk about all of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that teach us supplications for anxiety. Inshallah, we're going to relate those hadith with a sanad back to the Prophet. If you want the sanad from me, you can contact me inshallah, but you have to read the hadith to me. I'm not just going to give you the sanad like that, you have to make a little effort, inshallah. But we don't learn knowledge for chains of narration. Chains of narration may be used to start the fire for us in hell. But we learn knowledge to be better people and to achieve, inshallah, ihsan. So the Shaykh, he says, اشتدي أزمة تنفرجي قد آذن ليلك بالبلج. The Shaykh, he starts by formulating how we should see tests and trials and understand tests and trials. And the first one, he touches on something really important, is to never lose your agency. Never surrender your ability, inshallah, to change the situation. Don't surrender to the test. And that's why he begins, اشتدي أزمة. He orders the test. Azma is not just a test, it's like super test. Know how to translate it? A trial. So he says, increase, bring it. Like if you wanted to translate it like in colloquial language, like, yo, bring it. That's the feeling of the poem. Ishtaddi azmatu. Oh, whatever difficulty he was facing, bring it. In Arabic, ishtaddi ya azmatu. And one of the great scholars said that, this is used in a way to show that even though he's being tested and challenged, he's not allowing it to own him. He's the one calling the shots. He's the one who frames the relationship by the grace of Allah. So that's the first lesson that we learn from that line, is to not allow things to control us and destroy us. Happens in relationships. People are like, I'm insecure. Okay, deal with your insecurities. Right? Address them, wrestle them, fight them. But don't let other people carry that burden that you and I may be responsible for. And there's another reason he said that, because we believe that the greater the test, the greater reward, the greater the reward. The Prophet ﷺ said that, in the famous hadith, that ease comes after the hardship. Another narration, when he said it, he said, إِنَّمَا الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Within hardship there's ease, the verse of Quran. And we noted that there's two translations kind of this in Arabic, right, or tafsirs. Number one is like after the hardship, ease comes. Or while you're being tested and you're being patient and you're struggling to remove it incrementally, that is going to be a reward for you in the next life. Ishtaddi azmatu tanfariji. Increase your velocity on me because you're going to relieve me ultimately. Like the greater you are, the greater the relief. So that's the first point he makes. The second point is قَدْ آذَنَ اللَّيْلُكِ بِالْبَلَجِ. And his language is not easy to translate. Inshallah, maybe we'll see it tonight. He was really, really eloquent person. He was very careful with the type of wording that he used. And he says, because your night beckons the dawn. And your here means the trial, as though the trial is night. And what he's saying is that through difficult times, the dawn is always a promise. And that's why we said, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. It doesn't say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الصُّبْحِ. It doesn't say the Quran, I seek Lord and the refuge in the Lord of Subh. It says falaq. The word falaq means to split. Inna Allah faliqul habbi wa nawa. Allah splits the seeds. Right? Because the idea is that the test will be split from you, and then you'll enter a metaphorical dawn, which is now redemption. And that dawn will bring you to life and give you hope, just like the sun, as it used to rise, especially in the desert, afforded people the idea of hope. Alaysa bi subhin qareeb. That's what one of the prophets said to his followers. Isn't the dawn close? Yani the promise of redemption and life and warmth that the sun brings. The other point that he's saying is like, eventually things will pass. Just like the dawn and the night, the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun, these are things that come and go. So there's something else lost kind of in the language, and that is like, just as you see the day and the night as a constant around you, success and test and success and test and relief and anxiety will always also circle you. That's why Allah says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ خِلْفَةً. In Surah Al-Furqan, Allah is the one who made the day and the night for you to go in succession. لمن أراد أن يذكر أو أراد أن شكورا. For the one who wants to remember and reflect, and the one who wants to show thanks. Meaning, here, there's two meanings. When the night hits and the test comes, it's an opportunity for reflection. And when success and relief comes, it's an opportunity for what? For thankfulness. Now you understand the verse, subhanAllah. So the Shaykh is saying, eventually the trial has to end. And trials will come and go just like the day and the night, they come and go. And we went through like a few of the points that verse gives us. Number one is, with Allah's help, you're in the driver's seat. The idea of owning it. And if it gets too hard, we talked about what we should do when we feel that test, because we're human too, right? SubhanAllah. And there are times when we need help. That's one of the 25 wisdoms of tests. Imam Izzuddin Abdul Salam says one of them is to show you need other people. Like, it just can't be a solo artist. So perhaps turning to family, turning to good friends, turning to a support group, right? Addiction and things like that sometimes are best treated with support groups. The arts as a healing instrument is something that should be considered. And then therapy, like if somebody's in a situation where that is causing tremendous trauma and debilitating their ability to function. The Prophet said, Ya ibadallahi tatadawi, servants of Allah seek remedies. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we said the worst thing I ever heard was when someone said you have anxiety and depression because your iman is weak. So I said, go to that person and cut them. And if they bleed, say, MashaAllah, man, you're bleeding because your iman is weak. Like, it's not logical. It's not logical. The second is to never despair of Allah's grace. The dawn will come. The dawn will come. Number three is have conviction in Allah's prescription. We're going to talk about that inshallah, hopefully. That hardship is followed by ease. The Prophet ﷺ said that undoubtedly relief accompanies hardship. And then he moves on to the second line. And the second line is really trying to frame the idea that tests just don't suddenly, like they're not just suddenly removed. We live in a world now where everything happens so fast that we've become really an event-based species. Like if you think about it, the way that the political situation in America is covered and in the world, we're moving by events. We're not moving by a process. And while in certain cases that's important if it really is like breaking news, right? That's important. But often, like, imagine if your marriage went on events, like how the Trump administration is covered. Like every day it's a new scandal, right? So it's like, and today he, threw the recyclable stuff in the wrong trash can. More later. Then it's like an hour later, and he tried to do avocados with his fingernails. Served his family. right? I don't know anyone that does that. But I'm saying, like, imagine if we covered our family in the event-based way that we're taught to react now to, like, media or even the cult of consumption. It's always something new, right? Imagine, like, if you actually ran your life this way. It would be chaotic. But what that's caused us to do is to forget that life is a process. Allah says about the Sahaba, I mentioned this a lot of times because it's important. كَزَرْعٍ أَخْرَجَ شَطَأَهُ فَأَزَرَهُ. The Sahaba were like a seed that grew slowly. And I mentioned it today in the khutbah, the statement of Imam Ibn Ata'Allah, "Udfun wujudaka fi ard al-khumul." Like, dig yourself deep in the earth. Because what's not dug deep in the earth doesn't grow. Like, give it the process of training, give it the process of growth. It's not just suddenly going to become. I remember when I was memorizing the Quran, subhanAllah, the hardest chapter to memorize is the 4th chapter, at least for me, Surat Nisa. So I remember, and I memorized it, I didn't understand Arabic, so like it's even more difficult because you're reading, I don't even know what you're reading, right? I just knew it was like really hard. يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ فَإِن كُنَّ نِسَاءً فَوْقَ اثْنَتَيْنِ. يعني you can even hear it sounds like almost Surah Rahman, dude. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. It's like a lot easier than يَسْتَفْتُونَكَ قُلِ اللَّهُ يُفْتِيكُمْ فِي الْكَلَالَةِ. What? So I remember my sheikh from Senegal, he was like, if you memorize Surah Nisa, it's like you memorized the Quran. So like that put a lot of pressure on me. So like I went home, it was like busting Surah Nisa. I was in college as well. So I was like really trying to make it like on lock. And at least in that part of Senegal, they used to say that you can't move to a new chapter till you memorize one chapter like you memorized your name. كَيَانِي كَحَفِظْتَ اسْمَكَ. So it's like you really have to memorize it. And we used to have to write also. Maybe some of you brothers and sisters from the Senegambian region, you know about writing on like the lawh. So I came, I was ready, I was killing. It was a 45-minute drive to my teacher. I used to drive every day 45 minutes back and forth. I had no money, everything was on gas. And I got there and I was like, I'm gonna kill, I'm gonna slay. You know, you forget you need Allah and Allah will teach you. So I sat down, the first page, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqarabakum. I was like, Ya ayyuhan nasu. Yani, and then I got lost. Inna khalaqanakum min dhakarin wa untha. I went to Surah Hujurat. And Sheikh, mashallah, he was like, Like there were different sounds, right? Was like, oh Lord. Right? And you never hear in the beginning. Like that's like in the middle or like you have a blowout halfway through. So I was like, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqanakum min dhakarin wa untha. He was like, And I was like, oh man. He's like, did you prepare? I was like, yeah, I really prepared. He's like, khalas. One more time. So I started, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqarabakum, Surat Nisa. And then like halfway through, anyone who's memorized Surat Nisa, you know the end of it, wa kana Allahu. Every verse, wa kana Allahu. It's the same thing. So you're getting lost. Like you're lost, man. So if you make one mistake, you might go to like 2 pages somewhere else. So I was like, wa kana Allahu. And I stopped. He's like, wa kana Allahu. So, oh man, here we go. And then I had this massive blowout in Surah Nisa. And then I started crying, man. And he said to me, anyone that wanted this had to cry for it. Every imam, every sheikh, every qari who sat where you sit now had to fail to learn to be human. And I was like, man, you can make me cry more. Okay. But the sheikh is saying, embrace failure. So he says, وَظَلَامُ اللَّيْلِ لَهُ سُرُجٌ. Meaning at the moment that you're going through that crippling challenge and you feel broken, you might see the bright stars. So he like uses analogy because he's from the Bedouin, from the desert, of this dark, dark sky. And he's saying, the darker the sky, the brighter the stars. So the moment that you feel broken or the moment that you're experiencing trauma, it may be an opportunity to gain the ability for appreciation. لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَذَّكَّرَ أَوْ أَرَادَ شَكُورًا. That's why that verse says, the night and the day were made for reflection and thanks. The test and trials and success are made for reflection and the opportunity to appreciate. And sometimes nothing helps us appreciate things like loss. So he says, وَظَلَامُ اللَّيْلِ لَهُ سُرُجٌ. Be patient and stop in the middle of the trauma and try to count the blessings that are in front of you. حَتَّى يَغْشَاهُ أَبُو سُرُجِ. Until the sun eliminates that, until the sun takes over, meaning the trial is removed. And again, that alludes to the idea of patience, resilience. Things don't happen immediately. The process of crying and learning, that's not an event, right? You just don't go once and read Quran and cry. You don't go once and put too much on the bar, right? You don't walk into a relationship and be told that you're not going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And that's why I would say, and I'm by no means some super successful, wise Anthony Robbins type dude, although we are probably going to jump over some rocks outside with some fire in Washington Square Park. But the best relationships I've ever had with anybody, regardless of family or friends, are people that were able to accept the notion that neither of us were perfect. Not to a point where we took advantage of people. But the idea that, there's going to be mess ups. That's just how life is. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. And there's a challenge with this. Oftentimes we don't believe that we are not impenetrable. So Allah will teach us, man. The dunya can humble people. Number two is maybe we're not empathetic to others. So by going through different trials and pain, and we talked about this today with regards to Malik Shabazz, rahimahullah, that his experiences in life not only protect him from repeating those mistakes, but also become almost like a consultant that he hired to remind him how to treat people. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, the early part of his life is tremendous trauma. But if my focus is Allah, I understand that trauma is a personal trainer. I don't like that personal trainer. I don't want to eat kale, right? But I know eventually it's good for me. حَتَّى يَغْشَاهُ أَبُو سُرُجِ. And that's kind of where we stopped. He said that, the darkest nights have the most beautiful stars. And that will stay until the sun comes and removes all the darkness. And then you're experiencing bliss. And this is a metaphor for emotions. Right? He doesn't mean it literally, but he's using nature to kind of fill in the lack of meaning. And then he says, وَسَحَابُ الْخَيْرِ لَهُ مَطَرُ. The intimidating clouds that come bellowing in through the heavens that scare you, they have rain. What do you think he means by that? See, he's I'm from Oklahoma, so Oklahoma people, we scary. The reason that we're scary is because of tornadoes. Yeah, my grandmother could tell me it's going to rain today, man. I was like, no, it's not. How do you know that? She's like, I'm a country woman. When I say it's going to rain, it's going to rain. But there were people that would see things in the sky before you had cable news and everything that's happening and apps to tell you what's going on. And the sky would create fear. So I remember as a child, at least 2 or 3 times where I was taken into a cellar because it was windy, it was rainy. People were worried. So the sheikh, he paints this really intimidating imagery of these massive clouds that are rolling into your life as a metaphor for the crap that's rolling into your life, for the drama that's coming into your life, for the test that may have been there or is rolling into your life. And it's very similar to what he said earlier about the dark sky having bright stars. Saying like you may be scared and intimidated by these clouds, but they bring rain. And, religiously, it doesn't mean a flood, of course. Religiously, like we are someone, our Quran constantly talks about, of course, water as a source of life. Water is a source of purity. Water is a source of tazkiyah. Water as a source of ihya. So what he's saying is like, don't let it destroy you. I think we talked about the ant, right? 1,000,000 times. The ant on the hill. Shawqi said, the ant was like, wow, I'm an ant. Why am I climbing a mountain? I'm just an ant. فَارْتَقَى مَفْصِلُهَا مَنْ هَيْبَةِ التَّوْدِ الْمُعَظَّمِ. And she became terrified, this poet, and the ant started running down the hill from what she was scared of. And as she was running, inadvertently, what happened? سَقَطَتْ فِي شِبْرِ مَاءٍ هُوَ عِنْدَ النَّمْلِ كَالْيَمِّ. She fell in a puddle. Shawqi says, a puddle to an ant is an endless ocean. So she drowned, and as she was drowning, the ant said, what? صَاحٍ سَلَّمْتُ فِي الْعَاقِلُ مِنْ خَافَ فَسَلَّمْ. Like, why did I listen to these fears? I should have just, handled my business. And Ahmed Shawqi said, صَاحٍ لَا تَخْشَ عَظِيمًا فَالَّذِي فِي الْغَيْبِ أَعْظَمْ. Ya salam. He said, exactly, don't be scared of stuff, because what you may inadvertently run to, like the white girl in Scream, okay, what you inadvertently run to is more dangerous for you. So the Sheikh is saying, don't let it control you to the point that fear becomes in front of you and not behind you. Fear is a good motivator. We mentioned Al-Ghazali said fear is good as long as it leads to responsibility. But if it's like, I'm scared, okay, I'm not going to do anything. La. Then he said, وَصَحَابُ الْخَيْرِ لَهُ مَطَرُ فَإِذَا جَاءَ الْإِبَانُ يَجِي. Which means that the relief, the rain will come when it's time. Because maybe someone's like, well, when will the relief come? Well, when will the rain come? And of course, in his era, they didn't have all of the technological advancements that we have now. So rain was still very much a mystery. There's also something else happening here. I don't want to go too far away from the text, but when we read classical texts, it's as important that we learn from the silence of the author as we learn from the voice. So there's some anchors that he's alluding to weather the storm. How can I jump into that metaphoric cellar and take on the challenge of the storm, the test? Number one is to be pleased with Allah's qada, to be pleased with the outcomes. It's one of the things we can't change is what happened. Very rarely. And we can't control what will happen, no matter we try our best. So I find rida with Allah. We mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Sayyidina Musa, Inna rida'i fi rida'ik bi qada'i. If you want to know if I'm happy with you, are you happy with me? That's not easy, man. They say that people with the happiness to God fall into 3 categories. The first are infants. So if it's good to them, they're happy. It's candy. Ya Allah, Baba, atini al-bambuni. Khala mashi. My daughter, she's, give me a sucker, give me a sucker. I used to give her a sucker. You're the best, Baba, wallahi. MashaAllah. But if I take the sucker away, oh man, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمْ أُفْ. Have to start reading verses of Quran. Fear Allah. Some of us are like that. I think every week I run into someone that swears somebody should have been their spouse, but they're not. Or I was supposed to get this job, or this raise, or this was supposed to happen. That's tough. I'm not saying this is easy. We all, every single person in this room, there's no holy man in the Muslim community or woman that doesn't go through these things. If they tell you that, run. Number two is the qada of the middle schooler. Right? Middle school, man. High school, middle school. Where, I'm able to see a little wisdom sometimes and not getting. But still my happiness with receiving is by far more intense than my happiness with not receiving. They say that's the iman of the amma, like most people are in this place. It doesn't mean these people are bad, by the way. We're talking about aspirations. The first one is a problem. The second one, it's not easy, man. The third is the qada of those who have basira, who have insight beyond this world. Last Tuesday, we talked about there are some people that Allah gives them the ability to see with their faculties beyond just this physical world. Not, of course, in a physical way, but in a way of understanding. So, for example, the people in Mecca, in the 7th chapter of the Quran, Allah says, وَتَرَاهُمْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ وَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. They're looking at you, O Muhammad, but they don't see you. Meaning they don't understand what you're for. They can see you physically, but they don't understand your purpose. So they don't follow you. So the idea is that someone that Allah has given basarahum bil basirat al-awliya, they've been able to see is that they see the purpose of things. So they're able to prioritize stuff. They're able to understand that test and trial, again, is just part of the process. So the test and trial or the success doesn't consume them. Because all that's just a means. That's not the ending. وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. So for them, we're going to talk about the 8 etiquettes, inshallah, maybe later if we have time. Test is an opportunity for patience. Success is an opportunity for thankfulness. أَعْجَبْتُ لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. The Prophet said, I'm shocked at believers. Every affair for the believer is good. The believer, the one who sees the purposes. So he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if the believer is given something good, shakara, fahuwa khayru lah, then that person is thankful. That's good for them. And if they're tested, fasabara, they're patient, and that's good for them. So that's that qada in a very mature, nuanced way. The other thing is to have patience with trials. As we mentioned, that patience, resilience. I don't like the word patience, I like the word resilience. Sheikh Zakaria al-Ansari, actually to prepare this text, I actually went to a handwritten book. I don't know if it's been published by Sheikh Zakaria al-Ansari. He's buried next to Sayyidina Shafi'i in Egypt. Sheikh Zakaria al-Ansari said there are 4 types of resilience, of sabr. Number 1 is to be patient on the obedience of Allah. So to be patient with obedience.